Well, I wrote it. He drew it. Who are we?
I think you're Jason Aaron, and you're the writer of Thor?
I believe I am.
Okay.
You're Russell Dauterman. You were the artist on Thor.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a little kid, for me it was comics and Godzilla and Conan and a little bit of everything. I learned how to read from comics, buying them off the spinner rack in the grocery store and the drugstore. Now I've got a spinner rack sitting in my office kind of right next to the desk where I work that's still got all those same comics, weathered and worn so many times.
When I was real little, I was a huge He-Man and She-Ra fan, which definitely tied into this. And then what got me into comics were the X-Men, the animated series. And then I started to fall in love with the comics and eventually made my way to Thor comics and to Jason and then to Jane. I was hugely intimidated because I was such a fan of,
Because I'm such a scary guy?
Yeah, your beard was much bigger then, so it was more intimidating.
I always liked the idea of Thor as a god who would wake up every day and question, am I worthy? Am I a good god? And he goes over and picks that hammer and that tells him, yeah, I am worthy. And then one day he wakes up, he can't pick it up. And that set him off on a very particular adventure. And then that opened the door for somebody else to come along and pick up the hammer, and that's when we got Jane Foster as Thor. Jane was really the only character that was ever really considered. I'd kind of already established in Thor: God of Thunder that she was off dealing with breast cancer. And she's a character she's been a part of the Thor world almost from his first appearance. She was kind of just the girlfriend of Thor's alter ego back in the day, but she's always been around as a supporting character. But this was the first time she ever came along and picked up the hammer. I like that idea of, she's struggling with cancer in her mortal life and going through a very real struggle, and then picking up that hammer and becoming Thor. And it's really that's killing her. Every time she picks up the hammer, it's neutralizing the effects of her cancer treatment. So by being Thor, she's killing her mortal self, and that's sort of what makes her worthy to begin with.
And one of the really cool things that Jason was so good at was the juxtaposition between the real world, and she was undergoing cancer treatments, struggling with her illness, and so to juxtapose that stuff with all this high fantasy was super fun. And these Thor stories have been going on for a long time, and I think she especially brought some new energy into it.
I think if anything, we've raised the bar. You've seen a lot of different people pick up that hammer over the years in the comics. We wanted to take that away, and so we showing it's really, really special when somebody can pick that up.
Yeah, someone that's, doing it for really selfless reasons and doing it to be a hero. It definitely elevated what's required, and I think we're maybe below the bar.
I think we don't make the cut.
No.
That's okay. I mean, my job feels very selfish. I think of it as a very selfish job, and that I don't know how to write a comic for anybody else. I just know how to write comics that I want to read. So that's what I do, sit by myself, make stuff up, send it off into the ether. And then the cool and super crazy part is that an artist of the caliber of Russell draws that thing that I made up. And then at some point I get emails with those pages in it, and I'm like, what? This is crazy.
And sometimes they look okay.
They look amazing.
Like Jason said, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to draw something that I would want to look at, or that I think is cool, and hopefully someone else thinks it's cool too.
Right. I do. I think it's cool.
Oh, that's good. There's one.